Hello, it's Gabby here for you. Before we jump onto this week's podcast, I just want to let you know about 2 ways that you can work with me. First of all, I do one-to-one coaching and I do that via Zoom, so we can jump on a Zoom call at a time to suit you. The second thing I've got for you is an online coaching course that's 12 modules that you can download straight away now. There will be a link somewhere around these podcast notes. And this is the course that I've designed, and it's got everything in it that I wish I'd have known when I finished cancer treatment and I was lost. So you can download that course now and you can start working towards making this your happiest and healthiest year ever. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Take care. Bye-bye. Hello, this is Gabby here for you, and I hope this finds you well. This week's topic is a bit of a serious one, but it's one that's really close to my heart for my personal reasons, but also people that I'm working with as well. And that's about the level of support for employees with cancer, either working through their cancer treatment or, more importantly, when their cancer treatment finishes and they want to return to work. What level of support is there available? So this is something that I talk about a lot because I've got a lot of personal experience with this, but also I've got a lot of experience with clients that I'm working with, that I'm coaching with, and sometimes it's one of the most difficult areas for people, and that's sometimes what they struggle with the most. So I've got a lot of anecdotal evidence about what's good practice and what's bad practice that I see in the UK particularly. But this is really interesting for me because there's been a study released this week that's got some data behind it, some facts and figures. And so I'm going to refer back to this report, and I'll put a link below the show notes. So if you're interested, you can see the full report. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a summary about it today and the key findings of this report, what it found, what the current state of play was, and what their recommendations are, which again, as I said, for me is very, very interesting because for me, my working life was such an important part of my life when I worked in the corporate world. And, going back to my cancer diagnosis, at that time, I was somebody who was a senior manager. I was a contractor. I was delivering important projects. I was leading a big team. And so when I got my cancer diagnosis, personally for me, after the shock of the diagnosis, the company that I was working for at the time, they were fantastic. They were so supportive. My line manager was great. It was back in 2008 when I was diagnosed. And at that time, I don't remember, interest rates were really high. My mortgage was really expensive at the time. My husband had just lost his job and was starting his own business. So financially, things were quite precarious. And then I got a cancer diagnosis. So that was just one of the reasons why I wanted to work through my cancer treatment. But also for me, having been somebody who had been a senior manager for many years, work was a real intrinsic part of my life. It was part of my identity. Things have changed now, but at that time, it was such an important thing to me. And when I was going through my treatment, my director, my line manager was absolutely fantastic. Back in 2008, not many people worked from home then, but he gave me a laptop. He told me to be really flexible with my hours, come in when I wanted to come in, when I felt well enough, because I told him I wanted to carry on working. That came from me. I wanted to work, but I didn't know how much I'd be able to work as I was going through chemotherapy. And he was just perfect. He was really supportive. He was encouraging. He told me to come in when I wanted to come in, go home when I didn't feel strong enough to be in the office, gave me a laptop, told me just to log my hours and not to worry about too much about the job, which is great because I was delivering to the company quite an important project. There was a lot going on. And so for me at the time, that's exactly what I needed. And that to me was like, the best of best practice. But I've also seen some really bad practice as well. I've seen myself being treated really badly. I've seen inappropriate comments being made about illness, about time off. And I do think, the world of work is changing now. But that's part of the reason why I left corporate life is it didn't sit well with me anymore, seeing how people in some organisations get treated after a cancer diagnosis. Now, I can't speak generally because, there's some great organisations with some great managers in them. But my personal experience, and I've worked in a lot of different companies, I've been a contractor as well, so I've got a lot of experience of working in a lot of different companies, is really mixed. There's some good companies and there's some not so good companies. There's some great managers and there's some people who really shouldn't be managers, who've got no leadership skills and who are not trained and are bordering at, illegal practices. That's a story for another time. So for me, this study was really, really interesting. I've got my own stories. I've got stories about people that I'm working with, whether they're good or bad, and how they've been treated after their diagnosis. So this study, so I'm going to refer to my notes here and to make sure I get this right, has been published jointly by an organisation called Working with Cancer. And they do some really good stuff supporting people returning to work after cancer treatment finishes. And they've worked with the Institute of Employment Studies. And they wanted to answer the question, how can employers better support employees living and working with cancer? So the study included a survey of 204 HR managers, human resource managers, or the last organisation I worked with, they were called P&C, People and Culture. But it's basically the managers that are the people experts in these big companies. And they looked at 4 case studies to evaluate current practices and identify the barriers to effective support. Now, I know as a cancer patient, as somebody who's going through cancer, work and returning to work, for me, was a major source of frustration and stress. And I speak to so many people who struggle returning to work and they kind of blame themselves. They think, oh, well, and as I did, I've got chemo brain. I can't remember things in the way that I used to. Oh, I've got a lack of energy. I'm struggling to do all the things that I used to do. And sometimes adjustments have to be made, but sometimes that can be the adjustment of the person, but sometimes the company needs to make adjustments as well. I've also worked with people who have had excellent managers and excellent support. And you know what? They feel quite guilty about that. They feel like, I've had a lot of time off. So when I come back, maybe I shouldn't ask for a pay rise. I shouldn't expect a pay rise this year because I've not been there, or my team have been doing all the work. So I need to be really nice to them and let them get away with stuff. And there's a whole gamut of emotions and things to work through there. But I think the most important thing as I'm speaking to a cancer patient is to say, just be kind to yourself. You've been through a hell of a lot, and it's not unreasonable to expect adjustments to be made for your successful return to work. Given that 1 in 2 of us are going to get cancer at some stage in our lives, and more younger people are getting cancer, returning to work and supporting a return to work should be, if nothing else, a really economic driver for big organisations to think this is something we need to get right. Otherwise, we're going to lose talent. We're going to lose skilled, experienced people. And so there's some good and there's some bad in this report. So I'm going to take you through that now and the conclusions that it draws, which pretty much reflects my own experience as well. So the findings of this report highlights the gaps in employee policies, training and awareness, as well as some recommendations for improving the return to work experience for cancer survivors, which again, in my experience, is really mixed. The survey revealed that most organisations lack specific policies tailored to cancer. While many have a lot of general health and safety policies or flexible working policies or sick policies, only 4% have dedicated cancer support policies. And I find that quite shocking, as I said, 1 in 2 people is going to get cancer in their lifetimes. I know so many organisations that have got menopause policies. There's nothing wrong with that, that's great. But if they've got that, why have they not got a cancer policy? That'd be the question that I'd want to ask. HR managers, this was the findings of this report, predominantly focus on meeting legal requirements rather than addressing the unique needs of employees with cancer. This can lead to inconsistent treatment and support. And again, that's my experience as well. It really depends on the skills and the ethics of your line manager sometimes, of how well you get treated or how badly you get treated. And that can't be right, can it? The second big thing that this report has concluded is there's a lack of data on employees with cancer. Only 18% of HR managers reported collecting data on employees with a cancer diagnosis. Without this information, companies are treating their cancer patients on a case-by-case approach rather than planning proactively to accommodate the affected employees. And I've seen examples of this where a colleague has said, oh my goodness, I've got somebody in my team just been diagnosed with a cancer. What should we do? And the management team have all looked at each other and then cobbled together a plan. And that's no way to be treating people at this such a challenging time in their lives. The third thing that this report highlighted, and this is my experience, is there are challenges in managerial support. As I say, for me, when I was diagnosed, I got excellent support. It could not have been any better. But I've also seen some really shoddy treatment of people as well. That's things that I've experienced myself. And this report says significant gaps were identified in managerial capability and training. Concerns included limited training on managing cancer at work and lack of confidence in handling sensitive conversations. And you may or may not have seen that in your line manager. Some managers, don't know how to speak to people who are different to them, people who are different sex, a different gender, a different generation, a different nationality. Some line managers, as I say, struggle with these basic interpersonal skills. The report said as well, only 11% of organisations offer training specifically for line managers on supporting employees with cancer, even though it's proven that such coaching is found to be of benefit both to the manager, make them more confident, and to the employee, make them feel more supported and more valued at work. The fourth one was an awareness of legal obligations and of government schemes. So I'm talking about the UK here, and a quarter of HR managers in this study lacked a clear understanding of legal obligations under the Equality Act regarding cancer. These are HR professionals. These are people professionals. This is their job. And only a quarter of them lacked a clear understanding of the legislation they should be working to. I found that quite shocking. The other thing they said, legal obligations, there was a lack of awareness, I should say, of the government's Access to Work scheme, which provides financial assistance for workplace adjustments. And that was also low, with only 54 of HR managers familiar with this. So what's stopping organisations really managing this effectively? There's three things that the report concluded. One was economic barriers. Nearly half of HR managers cited business conditions as a barrier to providing additional support or benefits. Which just says to me that it's not a priority for that business that they're working. Secondly, again, really borne out by my experience, limited managerial capability. A third of HR managers noted that line managers often lack the time to fulfill their people management responsibilities effectively, impacting their ability to support employees with cancer. So sad that, but I've seen it again. So many managers pride themselves on how busy they are. Doing more with less is like a badge of honour. Look at me, I'm flogging my team to death. I don't have time to talk to them all. That's that mantra, but I think, in fairness, that's becoming less and less common now. I'm hoping that working life is changing now. And the third thing that gets in the way is senior management resistance. Lack of senior management support can prevent the expansion of employee benefits and foster a culture that does not prioritise the well-being of cancer survivors. And again, I've seen this so many times. It's almost like survival of the fittest. If you're weak or you're going to have a lot of time off, or I've heard people refer to a pregnant lady, she's going to have loads of time off with her kids. Really derogatory statements. And again, I'm hoping that's becoming more of an old-fashioned thing and it's happening less and less. However, it still happens far too frequently. And I know bad management practice, and I've been bullied at work in the past as well. Being bullied at work can absolutely devastate people's lives. It is one of the worst things that can ever happen to you in your working life. And it needs to be addressed. And organisations that are serious about looking after their people need to address this. So the recommendations in this report, it's not all doom and gloom. They do recommend some things. And one of the things I'd say about reading this report, it sounds a bit, there's so much wrong. But actually, the fact that a report has been done, to me, gives me hope that people are taking this serious now. They're talking about it. It's starting a conversation. these facts and figures are going to be widely reported, and I'm hoping decent employers and decent HR managers will be taking this on board and thinking this is something we need to do something about. It's not down to the individual to fight for their rights. They should be well supported, not just by the legislation, but ethically and morally, we should be looking after our people. You know, I've just left an organisation where in their strapline, it had people come first. It wasn't that, it was something around that. And that wasn't what I saw every day. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So the recommendations for improvement are that companies should develop specific policies and collect data. It's like, you know, sex discrimination, all sorts of discrimination now. It starts with collecting the data. There's pluses and minuses to that. We know, you hear people saying, oh, we've got to fill quotas and all this thing is negative, but actually you've got to start with some awareness. You've got to start by dealing with facts, not just stories about where things have gone wrong. Tracking the number of employees with cancer can help companies better understand the challenges and plan supportive measures. The second one is enhance employee benefits and workplace adjustments. Flexible working arrangement and access to health assistance programs are common, but additional services such as rehabilitation, health-related coaching and workplace counselling could be considered as well. And also to regularly review the effectiveness of workplace adjustments. Is this what people need? Just because somebody in HR thinks it's a great idea, is that really what people need? So check in with your people. The third thing, and this to me is key, is strengthen managerial training and support. Line managers and HR staff should be receiving comprehensive training on cancer-related issues. If they're not aware of it, they don't know what the legal issues are, how can they possibly be expected to be carrying them out properly? Legal obligations and effective communication strategies. Ensuring managers have the capacity and emotional support needed to assist employees with cancer is vital. You know, I've sounded like I've been quite critical of a manager here or several managers. But actually, if they're not equipped to deal with it, that can be quite hard. You don't know what's going on, what their history is, what the word cancer means to them. They could be so frightened of saying the wrong thing that it could be bringing back things in their family that are bad experiences. We don't know. So the line managers need support as well. And fourth thing here, promote awareness of government support. This report says employers should increase awareness of government schemes, such as access to work. And again, there's a lot of money available by the government to provide schemes like this, but it's no good if people aren't aware of it. 5 is improve communication of employee benefits. 6, encourage organisations to sign the Working with Cancer pledge. So this organisation, Working with Cancer, has got a pledge that aims to foster a supportive work culture for employees with cancer. Raising awareness and encouraging adoption of this can enhance employers' commitment to supporting cancer survivors. So a lot of facts and figures there, a lot of conclusions. As I say, it really sort of underpins my own experience of myself and the people that I'm working with, that cancer survivors, when they return to work and when they're in the workplace, their experiences are not always the best. And it's so sad to think that a lot of cancer survivors are leaving the workplace simply because they didn't have the right support, not because they weren't able to do their job anymore, not because they were failing, but sometimes because they were made to feel like they were failing. When with a little bit more support, a little bit more understanding, a little more flexible working, maybe some workplace adjustments, they could have come back to work and continued in a really successful, happy, fulfilling career. Good for them and good for the company as well, not losing all that experience. So thank you so much for listening. You can tell this subject is a bit of a hobby horse of mine, and I will be coming back to it. I'll be promoting and talking more about this report and about the findings that it's published, because it's an important debate that shouldn't go away. Cancer survivors returning to work deserve to be treated well. They deserve to be treated fairly. There's no point having legislation that protects them if people in organisations think they can ignore that and not treat people well. So, as I say, I've got such a varied experience in my own life, and also the clients that I work with when I'm coaching them. Such a varied experience, excellent experiences and not so good experiences. But I've heard it all. And if you want to reach out to me and talk about, what's going on in your workplace, whether you're struggling with your return to work, whether communication is difficult now with your line manager since you've had a cancer diagnosis, that is something I can help you with. So if you need help with any of this, reach out to me, ping me a message, get in touch. I'd love to speak to you. And as always, I'd urge you to stay safe, stay sane, have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, my darling. Bye-bye.